Yes, this is the Python Coder and we are continuing with the fun and games. Today we're going to load and show. When we play games, it's good to keep a high score. But how do we keep that between games? Well, we can simply save the score in a file. So what do we need to do? Well, we can store the scores in a file, a text file. And then before we play the game we can retrieve those scores, then show them, and then after the game, if we need to, we can update those scores and then we update the file with those scores, if that makes sense. So imagine if we have the top 10 scores, we can put that in a list, and we want the names of the players who've got those scores as well, so we can put that in another list. Retrieve the scores, we just open a file and get the list of names and scores. To print them we can loop from 1 to 10 and we just show the score and name. Update, well, assuming the user, the player, has got a high score, we need to find where in the top 10 that score will go, and also we need to know where the name is going to be inserted. We can't use a dictionary because we could have the same player or the same score, so we need two lists. But when the player gets a high score, that high score is going to go somewhere in that list and the name needs to be in the same place. So we can use the bisect again. So we start off with our scores and names. So we're just showing an example here where a user, a player, gets 25. So we put that 25 in between the 20 and 30. Makes sense? So that gives us the place where the 25 will be inserted. So we can insert that in that place, and now we have a top 11. So we remove the lowest score, which in this case is in the first location, which is the index 0. So our list has the lowest scores up to the highest scores, and the lowest score is always going to be in the first place. So after we've done that, we've got the player's name and we put that into the same position in the names list. We take one away because the position 1 should be the number 0. The position 10 will be number index 9. So here's our full code. So we import bisect, we've got our scores, our names, the new score, the insert, and then changing the name. Now when we've done some testing, there was a problem. So we've got similar code here, but we've changed it. When we have a player with a top score, when we put their name in, we have to move all the other players who've got lower scores than that down one. So we've got a for loop that goes from the beginning to the new score. So if a user gets higher than the temp score, then we need to update the top 10. So we've got update scores here. We've got an example where the scores range from 10 to 100, and we're going to pretend we've got a user called John who scored 110. So we're going to use bisect again. The bisect finds the place where it inputs the correct number. In this case it's going to put 110 right at the end, and then we insert that number, but we need to know where it is because we need to change the name as well. We're going to end up with 11 numbers once we entered it, so we get rid of the lowest. Now that works, but we need to think about the other names. So that's why we introduce this for loop where we move the names down one in the list. So let's test it with these scores and these pretend names. So if we run it, you can see we start off with 10 to 100 and A up to BC up to J with mark instead of B, and then the top score we can see we put John in, and you can see all the other scores have gone down. Now let's try it with a low score, something like 15. We run it again. You can see that John was in the 10th position, so the lowest out of the top 10. Now let's try halfway in between, say 55. We run that. You can see 55 is in the score. You can also see that the other users that have got high scores have been moved down with scores lower than John's, but not with higher. So that's worked correctly. We've got read and write the scores. So when we get the data from the file, so if we've got this scores and names, this is just an example with all 0 scores and just AAB to JJJ before players have put scores in. So when we read the scores, it's just a question of reading in the line and splitting by the comma, put them into the list. We can test our code to read in the scores, so we can print the scores and the names. We just go through each row and split it by the comma and put them into the arrays for the top scores and names for 10, 100 and 1000. So if we see we've got get scores, we open a file, put the line in, split it by commas. So when we run that, let's move this down. You can see we have our scores, tens, 100 and thousands, and that's read correctly. Now obviously we've got the scores where the bank is 10, 100 and 1000, so we have to do it 3 times. Write the scores. We've got a for loop. What we're going to do, we're going to put each score, which is an integer, change it to a string and then add that together. So then each of the scores and the names all gets put into one string. So here's an example where we've used 10 as the string name and name as the string name, and we just add the scores and the names together as 2 strings and then write them into the allscores.txt text file that we use for our scores. Just to show you, when we store the scores, we get all of the scores and names. We're going to put them in a range from 0 to 9. The only difference is if it's the last one, we don't need the comma between them and we just need the new line. And then we just write them. We create them as just a string, put all of the values as strings, put them together as one string for each line, and then print the 6 lines. Now does it work? Well, let's play a game and see. Assuming we get more than 0, we should be in the top 10. So what we're going to play, let's play with a stake of 10. So we've got all zeros at the moment. Oh, our card is a king, which is good, so we don't need to change that. So higher or lower than a king? Lower than a king. Let's say we're going to put the whole bank in 10. 3, that's good. Higher than a 3. Bank, let's put 15 in. 9. So 9's not so good. But lower than a 9, let's say put 10 in. Oh, it's another 9. Change that card? Yes. Card is 2. Higher than a 2? Yes. How much? Let's put 20 in. King. Oh, that's great. Lower than a king? How much? Let's put 40 in. Oh no, it's another king. Let's go lower than a king and put in 5. Let's hope it's not an ace. 6. Okay, change to 6. Yes, let's change it to a 2. We're going to go higher than a 2. Let's put our 10 in. Let's hope it's not 2. God, it's a 3. Well done, you won. Our bank is 20. So enter name. So let's just call it our test. Or what should we call it? Let's say we put in Dr Codie. And here we go. Dr Codie is first on 20. Okay, so it did work. So let's go through the code. We've got the name. When the user wants to enter their name, we've put a limit of 20 characters in, so make sure they put their name in that's not too long, and if they just press enter, it will ask them to make sure they put something in. We've got choose the score, which basically is getting the scores for either the game of the stake 10, 100 or 1000. Once we get the scores from the file, then they're going to be strings, so we have to change them to integers. So we're going to pass all of them plus the ones we're going to deal with, which is called scores and names. So we can update the scores and names using the bisect, using the code that we've seen before. So in order, we get the stake, we choose which list we're going to play, the 10, 100, 1000, print them first, play the game, then update the scores as we've seen before, and then we put this change scores to know which list that we're going to change, and then we print it again, and then we're going to put the scores back into the text file. So if the user, the player, gets a score that's in a top 10 that needs to be updated, then we need to update the text file. So that's the code. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you for watching.